We- It'll be relatively short.
All right, so we are
Forwarding.
there's a little.
Go. You can go. I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Commission on Disabilities meeting for December 6, 2022. The time is 4:37 in the afternoon. And I will begin by calling the meeting to order and ask Vanessa to please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And since we're recording, I don't know if we need to read the disclaimer. And have it
Just make a note that the meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, so I want to just note that because of an issue with Zoom, the meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded later to YouTube. It is not a live meeting. So there will be no public participation this afternoon, and we apologize for that in advance. We'll begin by going around the room and saying who is here. Our liaison with the Board of Selectmen, Kenneth Pacheco, is not with us this afternoon. We have the three members, starting with myself, Jonathan Gale,
Nicole Mello.
Kevin Smith.
and those are the members. I will say, if anybody knows anyone else who would like to join the COG, you can see there are only three of us here. We can have up to 7. So we could definitely use some more members. So you know anybody out there, please send them our way. Kevin, if you have the agenda items.
Yeah, so under old business, the first thing was the final update on MOD project grant status.
So all of the projects for the grant have been completed. There's nothing still outstanding with regard to the grant at all. We're now in the process of looking at dates, and I wanted to ask the two of you what you think for what would work potentially for MOD to come out and look at our projects, walk around the town a little bit. They'd like to see some of the work we've done in different areas, not just the website. Of course, they can go on from their offices, but while they're here, we can explain what we're doing as well. We're coming into the holidays, so if I need to schedule MOD to come out in the first or second week in January, I wanted to see if you're both available and whether first thing in the morning or later in the day is better. Because I know middle of the day is tougher for all of us.
As long as for me, as long as we schedule it enough in advance, I can make it whatever, either one work.
What would you prefer, first thing or later?
I think later in the day is a little bit easier for me, but
I'm pretty flexible if we have enough time that we're aware.
I'm sure you have at least 2
Yeah.
or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna try and schedule this tomorrow for right after the first of the year.
I'll make whatever
Okay,
work.
all right. And then, of course, we would have Mike involved in it as well, and Leanne and Karen joining us as well, and Ken. And any other selectmen if they would like as well. So I'll send that invite to everybody once we have the dates affirmed. But everything else has been done. There were a couple of departments in the town that were somewhat behind on getting their websites up to date and showing everything they could the way it should. I think that for the most part, we're probably 85 to 90% there. There are a couple of bumps in the road still, but they're almost resolved. So it's going to be a work in progress for the departments to always remember to have to post for the website correctly. But I think as far as I can tell, every other project is done. Kevin, do you have anything to add, or Nicole?
now, as far as I know, everything has been completed as well, so I know from. As far as parks and anything that happened in town hall, I think we're 100% completed.
Awesome. Very good. Okay, moving right along.
B, we had elementary, middle school events, activities, workshops.
So in the conversation that I've had with the superintendent's office, they had asked me to, because they were still trying to get up to speed on a lot of things, doing other things within the school system, trying to restructure the way that parents communicate with students and teachers and so forth as well. Unless there was a sudden urgent major issue, they had asked me to hold off until the first of the year to start to really look at the schools and look at what we can do for other changes and implementations. So I've taken that under advisement, and I will be back in touch with the superintendent's office next week to schedule for the first of the year to start walkthroughs and start meeting with different teachers and so forth in different departments as well. So that's where everything stands.
Have you had that? I think what they're doing has been excellent as far as like having an app and everything else. Have you had a chance to visit the app to see how it is?
Yes, so far, the new material that they're putting out with the app have worked perfectly. They're introducing a couple more things that they're talking about rolling out right after the first of the year. Preliminarily, from what I know of them and other people who've used them in other towns, they should be fully accessible. It may be more about making sure that as the staff post things, they're posting it in the accessible formats. But so far, the school department has been actually very good so far about the few things I've had to contact them about for a few different parents and reaching out for types of resources and services. They've been excellent and they've been responsive. So I will say very openly that the responses that we're getting overall are vastly different than they were in the past. And it's appreciated. It's appreciated not just by me, but by the parents.
Can I add into that?
Sure.
So, dirty laundry. So we had, not an incident, we just had something come up with it. Elementary school chorus has an upcoming field trip to Primetime. Their intention was to walk from the school to there, which is fine. But it's not the best route for Layla in a wheelchair, so I did reach out to request like bus service from there, and Jonathan helped with that, and the principal did, she got on it, you know, quick, we resolved it, she's working with the bus company to schedule it, but it just brought to mind, because I did see this on the agenda, that I think we're, in the past, when we've talked about the events, activities, and workshops, it's like ways to tie in and communicate with the students, but I think we might also want to be thoughtful of having the staff think outside the box of how, you know, certain field trips and things affect individuals with disabilities as well, because it's, you know, it was like obviously a foresight, and because you're just thinking, oh, we're going from here to there, it's a short walk, it's
Yeah,
mostly
but any
paved.
field trip, couldn't it be affected? Because could she take the regular bus, which,
No, so anytime that she's gone on a field trip, she's had to take like the van, her one-on-one goes with her, because I think they went to Gillette Stadium not that long ago for something. Which is fine, and Gillette Stadium is obviously very accessible. So like that wasn't an issue. But I just think even beyond like just, you know, mobility, like if you think of
I think it's the principle of it.
the principle of it is you gotta think of how, even if it was a child with autism, like, and you were gonna go to the electric light one, like, you know, you gotta kind of think of ways that all these field trips affect everyone who may be involved. It's not necessarily, you know, just, you know, because it happened to us with Layla in a wheelchair, you know, situation. But it's like, I think it might be equally as important to have sit down and like, and we talk about this all the time with using the Facebook and blogging and things like that, is like things like this kind of pop up somewhat regularly.
Well, I think one of the
responding, but we can
One of the things that
reach with them.
I want to do, I mean to cut you short, I'm sorry,
No,
I apologize. One of the things that I want to do is when we're putting together right after the first of the year, the schedule of what we're going to do with the schools, my goal by the end of January, if it can be done, or February, when they have one of those half-day types of things, or is to do an in-service at each of the schools. And the in-service is specifically for the teachers to focus on, what do you need to think about when it's a field trip? What do you need to think about if you have an autistic child in your classroom, or a child with mobility concerns, or a child who uses a wheelchair, or a child who's this, or a child who's that? What, you know, I think a lot of the times the teachers, I think there's a part of the teachers in some cases that don't think about it because it's out of sight, out of mind. But I also think part of it's the inertia. If they think about it, then they have to think of, what do I have to do for it? And I think that's the barrier we need to get through. A lot of this is going to fall to the principals, the assistant principals, and to the superintendent's office, the SPED coordinator. If they don't know what to do, pick up the phone, make the call. If they don't know what to do, they'll call me. But I think if we can start with an in-service, and educate the teachers again and get it into their forefront. That's a start, that's a step. So,
No, I agree 100%.
you know, I think that's partly where we have to start, but I agree. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like realistically, I don't think Layla's not gonna be the last kid with them.
No, and she-
wheelchair that goes to.
no, and she's not the
schools,
first kid,
she's
and
not
the
the
re-
first kid.
No, and if you look at the high school, there are several kids in wheelchairs, for example. They have to be accommodated for different things as well. So, you know, it's not rocket science and it's not new, and I hate to use that term. It's a matter of making sure that staff are appropriately responding the way they should. You shouldn't have had to send a separate request email out or CC me on anything. Let's be frank about that. That shouldn't have had to be the way it was. It should have been addressed. And if anything, the school should have called you as the parent, in my opinion, and said, this is what we're proposing. What do you think?
Mhm.
That's how it should have gone. So,
Yeah, it stinks when, you know, and this is like strictly a personal experience, but it does stink when like time and time again, it's like. What your kid needs to participate in a group activity is always the afterthought. And it's not like I don't have any anger towards people, because like you said, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Most people aren't thinking of this stuff on a daily basis. But like, that's, I think, one of our jobs as a commission is to educate,
oh, absolutely.
you know, so.
So the
that
other
way-
side of it, Kevin, is you're a proactive parent. I'm a proactive advocate. You're proactive as the town nurse. But a lot of parents are not proactive because they don't know how to be or where to go. So for a lot of people, this would have fallen through the cracks.
Well, no, and I think too, that's where we come back into this too, is like, and the school, at no fault of their own, is reactive to situations where it's like, we want to help them become proactive.
Proactive, absolutely. So I agree with you. So that's where we stand anyway, on the schools.
So
Thank you
on
again for
hold
sharing.
till the meeting.
Yes, and then when we have a meeting, probably the first meeting will be myself, the second one, I'd like to bring the two of you in as well. I think it's important for them to know that there is a commission out there rather than just an ADA coordinator. Because there may be other concerns or things that the two of you would like to address or be involved with as well. You know, even, you know, if it's you working with the school nurses on different matters of issues related to kids with disability who come in too.
Yes,
So there are other components of this too to think about looking at. So, yes.
All right, next up, we have the school street sidewalk.
School street sidewalk, I have not been there in the past couple of weeks. I know that the last thing I knew, they had tapered the pavement down for paving. I've sent Tom a couple emails to ask if that's been completed. The last few weeks I've been somewhat out of commission, so I haven't gotten over there. So if it's completed, I just need to go back and make sure that everything is realigned slightly, the way he and I talked about doing it. I do know that, as I said, I think at our last meeting, they cut a couple of the curbs away and moved them back a little bit so that there'd be a different flow. So that's where that stands. Unless you have, Kevin, do you know if it's been? Or Nicole?
I know this paving has gone on there, I haven't paid close attention to it.
Okay, all right.
Um,
I'll get over there this weekend, probably.
yeah, it's probably something you want to try to jump on before the weather
Yeah,
turns.
absolutely. I know there was a delay on getting the paving trucks over there at one point. But then they had already also, they said they had scraped it down. So I'm hoping that that's filled in by now.
Next, you have new library building committee.
So the library committee has met. And we've looked at a couple of different grants with regard to disabilities. There's one grant we're looking at for up to $20,000 that I'm going to be working on with Jocelyn. We just started putting that together. And a lot of that grant is going to focus potentially on getting the outside ramp redone, if that's what ultimately has to, the ramp's going to have to be moved away from the building a little bit. So we're hoping that this grant will potentially pay to have that outside ramp moved away from the building. The deadline for the grant is February 28th. It's a fairly simple one to do. There's only two options there, 10,000 or 20,000. We're going to be asking for 20,000. And that should hopefully cover the cost of redoing the ramp for the outside of the building.
What was the reason for the ramp moving away from the building?
Because when the windows when the windows are wide open,
They protrude.
yeah, they protrude.
Gotcha.
Yes,
That's too bad, because that ramp was actually.
it's a good ramp.
Yeah, the framing was fine, it
Yeah.
needed to be redecked, but the slope was good.
Exactly. No, it is very good. And we may actually ultimately be able to just almost move it out a little bit.
Yeah,
and kind of keep a lot of it intact, which would also eliminate some of the cost. Because the ramp itself is in good shape in many ways. Like you said, the angle is great, the length is great, it's just that it's too tight. So, then there's a second grant that I'm gonna be working on with Jocelyn as well, which is upwards of $200,000, and that's for the interior. And that would be, for example, in that building right now, there's a stage, there's no ramp to the stage. There's another part of the flooring that's gonna have to be raised in what was, or still is, a kitchen area. The floor is gonna have to be raised so that there are no stairs, because in that area you can't put a ramp. But if you raise the flooring, then it's equal with other areas. So this other grant that we're looking at potentially would go towards that, and possibly, this is not etched in stone, possibly towards an elevator as well. Elevators, because for the basement level, there are several rooms down there that right now will not be able to be occupied or used under the new process for the library yet, because that would be like phase 2 in a few years. And they're actually it's really nice down there. There are rooms that could be used as classrooms or activity rooms, but you have to have an elevator as well. So I don't know if this grant will cover that. We have to see what it will do, but it's specifically for capital expense. I mean, we intend to focus on a lot of the ADA components within the interior for that, including technology for persons with disability, whether it's lighting, whether it's computer equipment for speech, for screen readers, or for individuals with dyslexia, or booths if we need to for persons with hearing impairment. So we want to be able to use that grant for that. And again, that's all going to be towards capital expense for the library. It has to be approved. We have to do it, and then it still has to be funded. But
It's a reimbursement.
it's a reimbursement, yeah. And it's every 2, and we can also apply for this grant every 2 years.
Well, that's good, especially with the elevator situation.
Yes.
And everything else. I'm gonna go back to your windows for a second, because I know you have this meeting after this. So all the windows are getting changed. Right?
When you say the window, what do you mean by
There's
the?
gonna be said the windows, when they're open, protrude into the ramp.
Right,
I mean,
it's the ramp that will be changing. The
but
windows,
hear me out. Who decided that? Why wouldn't you have like a sashed window that lifts instead of a crank out window and have to move an entire ramp?
that's still a question that I have to discuss with Jim.
Like,
I know
right,
what you're
like,
saying.
why would you put in crank out windows that go out into a ramp that's already there and could be fixed relatively inexpensively?
And that's still the question I want to discuss with Jim.
Okay,
So the jury's out on that a little
all
bit,
right,
because that's my thought, whether we can do that, and whether aesthetically, does that change?
because in my mind too, it's a historic build, now we're gonna
Yeah,
go back
that's
to,
what-
it's a historic
That's the other
building.
side of
We
it.
didn't have awning windows in 18 whatever,
No,
so you're gonna. Again, and because it's a much broader conversation, it kind of encompasses a lot of different committees. But when we get into CPC criteria, now you've taken away from the historical value of the
Correct.
building, so
correct.
be
So that,
careful with that.
I'm very aware.
Yeah.
You know I am.
Mhm.
It's a matter of making sure others are. But yes, that's a concern I have.
That too, and I think of
Yep.
just not, I mean, obviously, it's a commercial building, there's gonna be
Yeah.
more than one point of egress anyway for emergency exit,
Yep.
but. Worst case scenario, if somebody did need to exit through a window, it's nice to just lift up a window and jump out onto a ramp.
I
So
think-
that's a lot, but you guys.
I think tonight is the first time we're having a walkthrough
Yep,
of the facility with different, different committees. As I said, it's the new library committee for that, also the library trustees. And whoever else is involved right now, so. I can tell you both more after we have this walkthrough and get some things answered, because the designers are gonna be there as well.
all right, so next is setting up our new COD ADA webpage.
So Justina has met with Leanne and myself. And as far as the website itself of the page now, we are ready to start posting. We want to make sure that we start posting everything to it the way it should. We want to start posting some articles, some links to different resources and so forth. I just wanted to let the two of you know before we started doing anything, to see if you had anything you would like us to concentrate on or focus on. My goal ultimately, for example, every week on the COD page of the town's website, every week is going to be to have some new information on different types of disability and resources for different disabilities as well. So I'll pick a day, unless the two of you have something in mind, For example, every Thursday we may post it up. And as well, put it on our FB page as well. And then again, our calendars will be up there for our future calendars, our minutes. Justina will be uploading all of that stuff to it as well, so. Didn't know if there's anything else the two of you think we should have up there or should be concentrating on.
I haven't even like wrapped my head around parks yet.
Okay, no, it's a lot, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it is a lot.
It is a real lot, and, you know, we spent about an hour with Leanne, and I'm sure at some point Justine will need to spend another hour with Leanne.
Do you have any website access for Board of Health, or is that
No.
strictly just the
It's just the department.
department? Cause like Leanne gave me access to be able to do parks and CPC
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm like, Petrol, I haven't even logged in
Well,
yet, like,
yeah,
how
I
am I
wanted
going to-
this for the town nurse, so I could get more stuff on there, like. Faster, but it hasn't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, I think if all of us eventually have access to, then it kind of helps, and we'll learn it. Then,
We are all know how to do it
then,
correctly.
you know,
It will, I think the biggest problem is that they were concerned, especially with the ADA component. That if they gave too many people access, things would be posted right, and it would be all over the place and just become a mess.
that's why I haven't logged in it. Yeah, I'm starting out like hit something and I'll lose my entire park.
You know, and if you need to too, and Justina's learning it, I mean, I know Lisa's learning it, but I can also have Justina talk to her and show you what she's doing.
Yeah, well, that too, well, Elizabeth from.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
From, our clerk from the
Right.
CPC has been like phenomenal with the
Yeah,
CPC.
that's
website.
great, yeah.
She's got it figured out, so that's kind of, she's got a ton of know-how on how to change stuff around too, so.
Okay. So that's where we stand, and then on the FB page, I have several things I'd like to start putting up there. As I said, I think we talked a little bit before about a blog. And I'd like to do a blog, which is just simply gonna be informational only. Again, I'd like it to contain information that I can put up with articles or resources. For informational purposes, I don't want it to be a blog where people are complaining back and forth about each other or this issue or that issue. I want it to be a resource blog. And I think Justina's got about 6 or 8 articles ready to go, but I just want to make sure that the two of you think that would be okay, or if you'd like to see them first, I can forward them to you to review, to get an idea of what I'm thinking of.
That, I mean, as far as information goes. If there's anything out there that's gonna be really.
All right, I mean, I'd like to talk about different types of disabilities.
See, I think with a blog though, you almost have to, a blog has a certain amount of opinion in it.
It does, you have to
So
let
you
people.
have to like, you can't just post an article, like you have to say. Some.
Oh, no, I mean, I want to hear people's thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think you need to give your thoughts. too.
I will, I'll give my general thoughts of a few sentences here and there, but I'm not gonna go into a pontificating long narrative.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not. Believe it or not, I'm not. I can't let it. So. No, I'm not. But, the plan would be to start that later this month, by the first of the year.
See, it's like, it's like there's a small comment here, like, not that I wanna ruffle feathers, but it's like, even what we just talked about, like with what happened to the school. Like what we should share, like if you have an experience like that and you brainstorming ways to change it.
Yeah.
Like that's a great blog article.
Well, and unfortunately, those things just like. They just get so. People don't, what they're saying, it just gets really like blown out of like, you got some way, you're like all the way down here so far away from what you were trying to talk about.
Yeah,
I think a way to do it is, I know what you're saying, but I think, for example, to use the FB page, for example, or use a blog. To talk about, the equity and fairness, for example, of children who use wheelchairs and their participation in extracurricular events or events outside of the school. And do it that way, and then invite parents to participate in the conversation, or anybody
yeah,
to participate in the conversation. Or with the FB page, the same thing, and as with the blog, if you are a parent or know someone who is a parent who has a child in the school system, we'd love to hear from you. What can we do to encourage the school to do such and such? And I think this is a good way to do it. So if that sounds okay. Okay, all right, then I'm assuming we don't need to vote on this,
no, I think
but,
this is.
okay, then we're good to go.
Yeah, because we've already, all of us have access to do anything.
Yes.
I think we're all reasonable people, we're not gonna put anything on our applications to make anybody in trouble.
Next,
Update on Main and William Street poles.
so, I was expecting that there would be some new, I noticed that going on down Main Street, they're doing some digging. And it looks like they're scraping some of the street to do some of the movement for the poles.
I think it's, most of that might be water.
Is that water?
Yeah, I think it's the water stuff.
Because I know that nothing's happened yet on the poles. I've done all I can do at this point. We, as the commission, and me as the coordinator, have met with the town, we've met with Tom Ferry, we've met with the electric company, we've met with every utility that has to be down there that has any relationship to pole. Last two meetings, there were like 10 or 12 people there. And the positive here, I guess, is that as a result of COD, I think the poles are actually going to be much more aligned and make the sidewalk much easier for people with disabilities to traverse. Because they're going to be straight, they're going to be on the outer side as opposed to the inside. The poles are now all going to be on the, except for one or two areas where they can't, all of the poles are going to be on the inside of the sidewalk as opposed to the outside of the sidewalk. So I think that, and they're also going to be set back now, because again, that makes a difference on the intersections. They're going to be set back on the intersections and for the most part of the inseam of the sidewalks, so that there's no blocking of either the pedestrian or the vehicle turning into the corner or crossing the corner. So I think simply because we were involved and did that and put the time into it. Once it's done, it's going to make for much better sidewalks. I think it's a matter of the town not making sure they have the resources to do it. And that's where that stands. Any thoughts or?
No.
Kevin?
I'm sure.
I know that there's a question mark about what the total project would cost. So whether that's something that has to go up to the town again for free cash, or how they're gonna do it, or bond it, that's not mine. I don't know.
Wasn't the pole relocation, wasn't that covered under National Grid?
The pole relocation is covered under National Grid, yes, but in order to do that, so for example, some of it, there's land that has to be touched by residents' land, eminent domain or right away. Because by relocating these now, there are, I think, 3 or 4 homes where the poles are gonna have to be relocated on their property. So there's a process the town has to go through to inform the residents, get their feedback, etc., which they did before. Excuse me, and a couple of residents were for it, a couple were against it. But now changing this again means they have to go back to residents, other residents now too. So I'm assuming that part of the process has started. I understood from the selectman's office that they have reached out to have conversation with residents. How far it's gone, I don't know. My concern was that these were all marked off. When we last met about 6 weeks ago, these were all marked off by the electric company and also by the surveying company.
Right, because they had placed all those flags.
Exactly, and a lot of those have disappeared. People move them, they fall down, whatever occurs, then may have to be all redone again. But I'm assuming that they've plotted out where they have to be.
That's engineered anyway, those
Yes.
one line diagrams with
Correct.
measurements from National Grid.
Yeah.
so. All right, new business, begin conversation for next budget.
So we all know the budget season is going to start January, and then February is when we have our first sit down with the town administrator, and then go from there. Speaking for me personally, I receive $3,000 a year from the town of Dayton to do what I do as the coordinator. I love what I do as the coordinator. I think you both know that. I think we've had a lot of success as the commission for things that we've been able to accomplish so far for the town. When we first formed in the first year, we had talked about, I know it's 16, I'm sorry, when we first formed in the first year, we had talked about asking for a significant or increase, which we did not get. We got an increase at one point from 2,000 to 3,000 2 years ago. But I wanted to consider what might be reasonable for an increase for me as the coordinator to ask for the town, because the things that I'm becoming involved in are much more time consuming and much more involved, and it's not just the physical plant of the town, such as the library or the sidewalks or these types of grants. It's also becoming more involved. It will be with the schools. It has been in some ways with families. I'm actually supporting now on an average month, and we'll get into this in a few minutes, anywhere from 4 to 8 residents who have specific needs of things that are being taken care of that often take multiple hours. So I don't mind doing it. It's kind of what I signed up for, but I think it's worth considering an increase in compensation. The question is, what kind of an increase in compensation? Because that also means an increase in hours, which I'm okay with too. But I just wanted to throw it out that the two of you get some ideas, get some thoughts, at least get the process on the table. Mass Office of Disability is behind. They would support an increase in hours and an increase in rate or wage, whatever way it wants to be called.
Well, you're not
I'm
an
concerned-
employee.
Yeah, I am concerned.
Well, you're not like a salaried employee where you're getting paid for X amount of hours per week. You're getting a
Correct.
yearly stipend.
Correct.
So
So that would
you're
be
putting,
donation.
yeah, so one, you're not.
No,
Like, you
you
say increase in hours, but you
Right.
don't really have, like, you're not,
There's not a set.
there's not a set
No.
amount of hours.
No, so what
I
are
think
we
you're
doing?
going above it and beyond what would be expected of you given your pay rate.
Correct. And ultimately, this is a conversation that we've had, or I've had with Mass Office of Disability. They're willing to sit down with us as a commission, and discuss, with us and with the town administrator, what might be considered reasonable. I don't think that the town administrator is necessarily opposed to considering something. I think the question is determining what's reasonable. And this is a small town, so it's hard to determine in small towns what's reasonable. In other towns that are this size, sometimes there's another town employee that does some of what I do, not all. But that town employee is allowed for so many hours per week, 10 hours, for example, of their salary time to work on ADA issues or concerns, things like that. So if you equate that to somebody's salary, whatever that might be, that's what they get. There are a few towns where there's the volunteers only, but they're not nearly as involved as what I am or what we need to have in this town at this point. So it is very hard to determine for a small town this size what compensation is fair.
We can play with that real quick, right? So. You did 10 hours a week times 52 weeks. It's 520 hours a year. So that's bare minimum. If you did, even if it was, let's be modest and say $25 an hour. That's $13,000.
Correct.
You're getting 3,000, and we've had this conversation every year at budget season. At least 80 to 150% of that goes to your aid.
Correct.
So you are not getting anything. You're strictly supporting
Right now,
your position by paying aid.
what my aid is right now, our budget calls for my aid to get up to $1,000 or $1,500 total. Above and beyond the 3,000, our total budget is $5,000.
Mhm.
So, and Justina uses, we bill out quarterly to town for her.
Mhm.
And we're coming, I think last year we were just short of it by about $200. This year, we're probably gonna end up. Given the first 2 quarters and the amount of stuff we've had to do in the next 2 quarters, it's gonna be just around or just over. So a little bit of over, so it may come to $1,700 or $1,800 is what I'm saying, and that difference will come from what I have, yes. So it's not, the $3,000 is not the real value, is that what, that's what you're asking?
So that's allowing 5 hours a month. Of Justina's time at $25 an hour. Like, we just keep using that.
Right, but Justina, we paid a different rate, so.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, Justina, we actually pay $15, not $16 an hour. Because she's working for me as a reader, she's not an employee of the town. Just she's gonna be 1099 by the town.
You don't want that. I mean. I don't, like, we bring it up every year.
I think what we should do, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with the two of you, for our January meeting, is ask if the Mass Office of Disability can join us either in person or by phone, by Zoom, and have a conversation with us. And I don't know if we should invite the town administrator at that meeting or not. But I think it's important for us to hear from MOD first on what we should be considering.
Well, I think the town administrator should be a part
Yeah.
of the entire
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah,
because you don't want anything to get lost in translation.
no, so I'd like to consider doing that, if it's okay with the two of you. For part of that meeting, or it may have to be, again, because of the time of day we meet. It may have to be a slightly different time. And we can even do that by Zoom if we need to.
Mhm.
And call a special, I don't know, special meeting to do it if we have to.
Well, no, it'd be great if somebody could join it, you know, at our meeting time, even if
Yeah.
we get to it early in the meeting, if somebody could join us, at least via Zoom. that would be-
So if it's okay with you, I think that's the place to start. To hear from them what we should be considering and what's involved in it and what they consider. Acceptable for an AGA coordinator. They're not gonna talk about the salary. That's not what they're gonna do.
Right,
They're gonna talk about the hours and the time that should be, or any AGA coordinator in this town should be expected to put in based on the size of our population and the potential percentage of residents we could be serving.
I'm anticipating that this year is gonna be more challenging than others due to them wanting to go over what the zero.
yeah, so we have zero-based budget.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was,
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
I mean, you can still, even with zero-based budget, you can get back to where you are right now. You just have to have all the information to back it up.
yeah,
I mean, I can, we don't have to discuss it heavily right now, but I mean, there's obviously. I mean, I can think of the pros for asking for something, I can think of the cons that other people would say no. And again, that's for another conversation, but I just wanted to put it on the table, at least. So. If the two of you have no objection, I'm gonna reach out to MOD and see if they can participate in our next meeting.
yeah,
And I'll invite Mike as well.
they certainly are gonna know more about what the time
Yeah,
consumption and pay
yes,
should be than we
Than
ever
anybody.
will.
yeah. They actually asked me to reach out to the New England ADA Center to see if they had any stats on small towns, and I reached out to the New England AD Center for small towns, and oddly enough, they did not have stats, and what they said was the same thing and what he said, is that in small towns, very often, they'll designate somebody else to do some of the work and put X numbers of hours out of their salary aside for that, it's that portion of it. And that's how it works out, so, but at the same time, what they also said is that if you have an AGA coordinator in your town doing certain things, it leads to other opportunities, other grant opportunities, and other resource opportunities.
Well, that too, I would say you almost argue that. We've seen it in the past here, not to. Throw like anybody under a bus or say that they didn't do a good job, but we've got so far behind by taking that approach of not having a designated ADA coordinator who is experienced in.
Yeah.
With CAM certification and just ADA law in general, so.
Well-
If you look at what's happening in those towns that have those people in those positions, it's probably nothing compared to the towns that have. Legitimate qualified ADA.
That's true, no, that's true, and I think the two people who we would probably be hearing from MOD are Jeff Dugan, who is their deputy commissioner, who is the gentleman who oversaw our grant. And also their general counsel, their legal counsel, because Jeff mentioned that she would be involved in helping to put something together. So, this is also something potentially that, depending upon what they're talking about and recommending, hopefully Mike and us could find a compromise and take that to the Board of Selectmen, to the FinCom, and say, this is what the state is recommending, in effect, as well. So it's not just us recommending it. I think that holds more weight. So that's where that stands.
So next you have consumer services. Okay.
So the reason I put consumer services there is that I think it's important for me to start every month without going into any names, but just to give you a rough idea of what I'm doing to reach out to consumers, or consumers who are reaching out to me as the coordinator. For things that we provide or support. Because that's one of the other sides of the job. So, for example, we had the the question mark that Kevin raised earlier with the school system. With wheelchair access. We've had another resident who was in an automobile accident, senior, and needed a wheelchair, didn't know where to get a wheelchair because she has an extended leg situation. And I was able to make arrangements with Primetime here actually, for one of their unused wheelchairs that they have over in Lincoln Village, for that woman to have a wheelchair for 6 to 8 weeks that has the extended leg component on it. We had another resident who was hearing impaired, who was going to an event at one of the schools and didn't have an interpreter, and we were able to arrange for an interpreter for that person so that they could go and be fully participatory in what their grandchild was doing. We had another woman who, as the result of a drug overdose several years ago, was in need of some mental health services that were qualified as ADA, and I was able to arrange those mental health services, and that was crisis intervention time. That's an example. To do that crisis intervention took about 8 hours altogether, do all the back and forth. We have another family who has a child in the past month who, when I say child, is a transition person from high school at age 22 to a group home environment, who needs one-on-one support. And that family, for example, reached out to town hall reached out to me. And we're arranging for that family to have GATRA transportation for that individual to his day have services. Now, there's a process with that, because when you're looking at even for transportation right now like that, it's hard to find because there's enough vehicles, but there aren't enough drivers. So GATRA has plenty of vehicles available, but they don't have enough companies that have enough qualified drivers. So in the meantime, I'm working with that family to make sure that their needs are met. We've done all the paperwork. It's been approved. It's gone through with Mass Health, as an example. And now we're also in the process of trying to help that family find a PCA to come in 3 mornings a week into the family's home or Dayton resident, if anybody happens to know of anybody, for $25 an hour for about 3 hours a morning, 3 times a week. So, you know, those are some of the examples of what we've done just in the past month for other residents of the town. And I think, as I said, I think it's important to start sharing some of the people, you know, or the situations, because we can't use names.
Oh, yeah, that other, to the whole ramp lift
Yes,
fiasco.
yeah, we had a situation where what Kevin's alluding to is we had a resident who had their significant other coming home from rehab and was looking for a ramp for the outside of the house and a chairlift for the inside of the house. Well, it turned out that we can't get involved in the inside of the house at all because of the liability through the town. And we tried to work with our Veterans Affairs Department to see if we could do anything in the inside of the house, but it turns out, again, they couldn't do anything because this person is a veteran, but their disability wasn't the result of being a veteran. So ultimately, we had potentially made arrangements for a ramp outside the house, but then it sadly turns out that this person is coming home for hospice care. So in the end, as I said, sadly, they're not going to need the resources that we were trying to put in place. They were being brought home by ambulance, and I don't know the outcome at this point yet. But I think considering it's hospice care, we kind of know what the outcome is going to be, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But again, the back and forth of the people involved and the resources and the time it takes to try and put all these things together is considerate. So, you know, yeah, you're right, Kevin. That's another example of what we all tried to do, and you were involved in trying to help with that too. So, thank you. So that's it for my consumer update.
Quick on the new business before we move on. So Best Buddies finally has a new
I have this on it.
citizen chapter person. Like, she literally, it's weird because like I'll try to, like, I had a Zoom with Krista, and it was not that it wasn't helpful, it was
Mhm.
just like we were both kind of like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Because, and that's, to be fair, it's not her job to support individual chapters, but she was like trying to, you know, just kind of fill me in on what they have going on and stuff. So maybe it was Friday. I got an email, so they have a new rep, and she had asked to set up a Zoom.
That would be great. Can I give you my thoughts on this journey of Best Buddies, like where I see?
Please do. I'm like,
So now we're at a weird spot, like, yes, I want to meet with this person, but in a weird spot in regards to the time of year.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing like we have a little bit of December, we have January, February, we got March. And then April, like weather starts getting better. We have all these months that potentially we could be building like social media, really drawing
Yes.
people in. I don't wanna say hyping it up, but getting people excited about it, and then when we get to like April, then we can finally. Like bring people in and start actually doing stuff. Does that seem like too much of a time? I just feel like,
No, I think, no, we just need to do something.
yeah, well,
I
that's
know it's
like,
been
if we say April, we're doing something, do or die, it's happening, like.
So one of part of the conversation that I had with Krista was one, and now I'm like, I'm glad they have somebody new and hopefully she'll be able to help us. Navigating the whole, like their portal system
Mhm.
is so incredibly difficult. Because you don't know like who or where anybody is from. So it's kind of like, it's difficult to identify, like if even people came from co-op. I had one woman that I did talk to that she had signed up her son, but he's not part of co-op, and it was like, so it's like just trying to figure out who's where and why and where they came from and how to communicate with people. And then there's like some people you sent them an email, you didn't hear back, try to send them, reach out to phone call. So it's like, it's been challenging. I haven't put probably as much effort into it, like since our original guy kind of left, Matt.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I kind of like took the wind out of my sails, because like it's what we were trying to do.
So I mean,
You had a lot of.
Yeah.
You had a good luck. So.
And I think I kind of like. Even that, like I had started to try to put together like a citizens chapter Facebook page. I think I'm gonna actually just delete that, because I don't love like how it can be accessed. It's like extremely difficult to share, like you can't share it because it's private.
mhm,
So it's like, I think you need to go back to just have some sort of disclaimer with permissions and like be able to make it public
yeah.
so everybody can find it. But then like, as we do start doing things, like if there's pictures of people, like just be respectful of privacy if you don't want your picture
Yeah,
posted.
maybe
Yeah,
even have like a
yeah,
side
like just
thing,
like they
you
do
know,
for the
yeah,
school with the
yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
Just do the same sort of situation, but make it public so you can actually share it, people can search it and find it, because I kind of messed up on that, because I was thinking so much about the privacy factor of it. And that I think I made it a private group, and the only way is to invite people and not everybody
I think the
can find it.
I think the toughest part though is how what we can do to publicize and how we can get people involved. I guess what I'm saying is that, it's hard to get parents from the school system involved because their kids are too young
Mhm.
at this point. And it's hard to get adults involved who are not used to working with individuals with intellectual disability. Because they like, what do I do? How do I this? How do I that? Kind of thing. So I'm throwing this out there of ways we can get people in to want to participate or want to be participatory.
Well, that's why we've always had the conversation with Best Buy, and they kick back at this a little bit, but like I refuse to budge from it. Is that like you need, and it's not for everybody, regardless with or without IDD, is I think you really need to start it off with being in groups, even if it's small groups, because everybody's gonna be more comfortable than just be like, hey, pick up this person or meet this person somewhere that really
It's a verbal person
Yeah,
that you've never seen.
never met, like
Yeah.
that's what makes it
And we
difficult.
can keep reassuring people that, hey, you don't have to know everything, we're all here together, we're all gonna learn this together, we're all gonna learn how to be best buddies together.
Right.
I think that will help.
I think too, it kind of got like, because we kept it earlier on, we were talking about like, oh, but we can do like this sort, even though they were small, it's still like, let's do this like event, like where it was like, let's do a bowling thing, let's do a this, let's do a that. Like, it's like, let's just dumb it down to like, let's have a vote. Like, even if it was, I mean, I'm sure that we could use, even if it was this building,
Mhm.
like just have a social, doesn't even necessarily have to be an ice cream.
What do you think of the idea of me or all of us approaching, for example, the churches in town? And asking the churches if we can have some time, I don't care if it's a Sunday or not, to go and talk to the parishioners for a little while. About what Best Buddies is and what we're looking for and the kinds of volunteers that we're looking for. Or if they happen to know of an individual or a family that has an individual with IDD as well. You know, we'd like to invite them to join us as well, things like that. I'm thinking that if we go routes like that, we might be more likely, at least initially, to get some people who want to participate, as I'd use the word, their give back or their feel good or their care. But that's sometimes how it starts. People are looking for something to be involved in like this, and they don't know until they get there what they want.
There's a church in town that does a lot. They're always at every event.
Yeah, those people are all incredible.
Yeah, and that's actually where I'm gonna be tonight. So,
And I hate to keep targeting the people that are already giving so much, but you can.
Well, I mean, it's no different than anything else. It's just like you see it with who's involved in town. It's all the same group of people doing this stuff. But it's like any type of outreach is good outreach. It doesn't matter that if it's from a church or it's from a pagan group, if they want to do good things, they can do. It doesn't matter as long as they're good people.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about like really with the Best Buddies program is at the end of the day, everybody gets vetted. So it's like, you're not gonna, you're not pulling in people, just random people off the street. Everybody's gotta go through the background check.
do you know, have you scheduled a meeting yet? And
No, I haven't because I knew, I think it was just yesterday, because I knew we had this meeting.
can you involve us? Or-
Yeah, I'll make sure, like. You that, let
We'll
me
let
try
you-
to do the same thing, like
Yeah.
something like at a, like in a,
Yeah, if you
like
give me enough time.
3 o'clock,
like,
4 o'clock time.
Yeah.
First, it'll be a Zoom.
Yeah, well, you know, and you take the lead on it. We'll sort of,
I don't need to take the lead, jump in and say like, even this, like, I was like, I'm glad it was on your list too. 'Cause it's like, it's one of those things that it bothers me that like, it hasn't.
There's someone that
Yeah.
literally asks me every day and I'm like, I will tell you, you were the first person I will find when it,
I didn't think it was this difficult to get it moving,
yeah.
but a part of it, and it's just not knowing how to navigate their system, because even that, like, we could have a group event, like, because if we knew everybody involved, like, if it was people we knew from the program,
Mhm.
people outside the program that we knew would be safe to, have
Yeah.
a get together, that's totally within our.
And then I have questions like, if say we did like something low key, an ice cream, something, like how do we pay for that? How does this even
we
work?
have, we do have money in the COD budget for that.
Yeah, but that's like a total different, you wouldn't want the COD to prove, because this is a total private.
I think if it's sponsored by the COD though, we could sponsor the first event or two by the COD
She might have
to get,
whatever other groups are doing, there's gonna be something.
You know,
that
right.
might have some.
Well, there's such a small sampling of,
Yeah,
the other thing though is like totally, because it is separate. You have the ability, but it's like, you have to get it off the ground and moving first. You can fundraise
mhm,
to support your program.
Yep.
Like you don't have to, everybody isn't expected to come out of pocket and, support these events. The other good thing too is like, we're fortunate that we do live in an area where like every major sports team is extremely supportive of these programs. So it's like when you get big enough where you can do that kind of event, like let's go to a Red Sox game, typically, those tickets, or whatever, for your group.
there are discounts that
Would be either discounted or it's only good at that
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
But depending on your group.
Yeah.
But
But I mean, in terms of even just having a first time or two, like ice cream social or something.
Yeah.
It can be sponsored by the Commission on Disability.
Yeah.
Because it's related, it's directly related, and it's bringing persons with different types of disability and residents together.
Yeah.
So rather than, at least for the first 1 or 2 events that are inexpensive, $100 for ice cream kind of thing, that could be covered by COD and
I
then.
don't think we could get July.
Okay. $120.
Well, even that, like if you do that and put out a jar that, has
Yeah.
the best buddies emblem
Yeah.
and just.
but then it's like, then where do we put that money? Do we have like, what?
I think that's
Yeah,
like
there's so
other
many-
questions,
there's so
yeah.
many questions.
That's the question we have for the town treasurer.
Yeah.
Well, that's again, where it's separate, like if the COD wanted to sponsor an event,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, the Best Buddies Citizens chapter
Isn't a town.
isn't a town entity at all. It's a private
Yeah.
citizens thing, but I think you almost need to treat it like you would if you had a 503C, is like you have to have, treasure, like you almost have to have a board.
Yeah,
that would run it. It's very loose though, like from what little bit of information I've been able to get and look into, it's not like. There's not a ton.
I would probably at that point recommend that we, again, at COD, I'm gonna still say COD hosted as a meet and greet best buddies, event. / best buddies event, with the goal in mind of establishing a chapter,
mhm,
so that way we can still put it together for the first event.
Yep,
And then use that kickoff as the next impetus for the people who are there to form a chapter.
Yeah.
Which I think makes a lot of sense,
Mhm.
so, yes.
yeah,
I will-
so bring like physical sign up sheets, plus
Yeah.
have like that QR code
mhm.
set up.
Yes.
Or even like a computer setup. if
Yeah,
people want
somebody
to-
could, yeah,
I
and
will,
be able to help with that.
I'll put together a quick type of, just a short letter I'd like to send to the different churches and stuff in town. And I'll send it to the two of you just to look at as a draft. Just to get your thoughts, just as an introduction. So that maybe either I or all of us can go, or any one of us can go and talk to the churches. Because it might not even be on a Sunday, it could be like a Thursday night or something like that, or,
Mhm,
whatever. Yeah, and then other groups in town too, obviously the Lions Club does a lot, they might be willing to support something.
Mhm.
And can, even contribute to it initially, they do a lot of local things to contribute to,
mhm.
they might.
Yeah, that isn't like, again, from a funding standpoint, I mean, because that's essentially what the Lions do.
Does, yep,
That might be another.
Yeah, I
that's a
didn't even
good
think
point.
about
yeah,
that.
so,
The Lions could certainly.
they could manage, potentially authorize like $250. To get something kicked off the ground, things like that too, so,
Mhm.
I'll put something together and send it to both of you.
Okay.
Anything else? Nicole?
Can we, things that aren't on the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, because you had made reference to a resident, I think, recovering from,
Automobile accident? Or is it-
no, from, was it,
I made reference to when in rehab,
yeah, maybe,
who's now in hospice.
no, not that one, but at some point we had said that, under disability is people that use drugs, is that?
Yes,
was
that
it?
does come under.
Okay,
Alcoholism and drug abuse are considered ADA.
so I'm, as the town nurse, I'm involved in the Healings Community Study.
Mhm.
And it's Freetown, Berkeley, and Dayton.
Yep.
And they're doing stuff with opioids,
Mhm.
harm reduction. And I didn't know if you would be interested as the ADA coordinator, getting information about it, especially if maybe people reach out to you and they're looking for services.
I'd be very interested actually,
Okay.
because
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of people who have different types of disability. And I've already had a couple of situations where they easily become involved in opioids.
Mhm.
And very often it actually starts with the simple fact that they're taking other medications for pain,
Yeah.
or for other types of things, and then it leads from there.
That would be
No.
great, because we're
Yeah.
like, we don't know how, so it's different than if you're like in New Bedford or Taunton, you can see where where the issues are, where people are having challenges, because maybe they hang out at the bus stop, maybe they hang out here. And it's more like out in the open, but in these rural communities, there's not
There's
places,
something to hang out.
yeah, so I mean, it's very a private thing, and
It's not like Tent City in the south end of Boston.
yeah, so how, we don't know how to get out this information to help these folks.
I think
really
we
it's
can
these
put it on our
services.
FB page, we can also put it periodically, different parts of it on the FB page, we can put parts of it on our new town page that we just talked about now. It might even make sense, for some of the other small things in town, when they have little things for us to have literature to give out.
Mhm.
But yes, I'd love to be involved, and I'd like to attend the next meeting or one of the meetings.
Yeah, I'll have our Dayton meetings, I'll get back to you when our Dayton meetings are, and then I'll give your email to Nate, he's like the coordinator, it's through, did I say it was through BMC, Boston Medical Center?
yeah.
Because we're just in the beginning stages, we've only just approved the funds for each different thing that we're putting into place.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is that Dayton does have an opioid problem.
Mhm.
And you may know it as well as I do. I know several families that I've worked with already who have had a son or daughter, or in a couple of cases, even a parent, who have had to have I've intervened to provide services or resource, or help them support, a mass health direction, or some people in the claims in 2 cases.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah,
this would be great. All right, thank you, John.
What's the name of the program?
On the Healings Community Study.
Yeah, in a couple of cases, we actually sent people to McLean, one of them, is right now in the CDP program,
Oh,
as well, so, and similarly to, alcoholism, we've got, I think I've gotten 4 people involved in different AA programs, 2 are staying with it, one is now 7 months, one's about 4 months, the other 2, no. But, yeah, it's part of what we do.
yeah, we'll have a drop-in center that we're working on having in, I don't know if that's Berkeley or Freetown, that farm over there. At this moment,
Oh, I know what you're talking about, okay.
I can see its little picture, it's like a tree,
Full envision.
yes,
Yeah.
envision, yes. So they're working with us, so, it would just be nice to have somewhere that we can send Dayton residents. That it feels like home, like it's
Yeah.
not, they're not going into the big city to have a drop-in center. They're
And
going
not only
somewhere
that, if
that's-
it's a drop-in,
Really?
center, in some cases too, we may be able to help them if they need it for transportation.
Yeah, that's right now our biggest thing is like figuring out how to get people
So
transportation.
why don't we? Yeah, that's a
Okay,
lot of
that-
what I do is transportation needs through the PT1 network through GATRA. There are other grants that GATRA has that has nothing directly to do with medical, but if these are medically based. Then we may be able to arrange transportation too.
Okay,
So,
oh, great.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Go for
That
it.
was it. No, I'm not, I'm gonna send that email tomorrow.
I would table this one, but next time, I'm pretty sure that right after the September meeting, I did the minutes and uploaded them to Dropbox, but like I didn't have a chance to check, so. We'll have to do them, we'll have to double them up next month, because
Okay.
I didn't have a chance to find them.
What time are we, by the way? Does anybody know what time it is?
5:38.
Okay, I'm gonna check, I'm gonna have to check in there because next meeting is a little after 6. See if Mr. Chico's picking me up, so. Is that anything else right now?
Public input?
Nobody's talking?
Nobody hiding
Nobody
anywhere.
right now, but if the public reviews this video and wants to make any input or any comment, I would invite them to go to my ADA page at the town, or they can also leave me a voicemail, and I will leave the phone number, which is 774-872-0924. And they can leave me a voicemail, and that comes to me via email as well. And on that note, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Next 3 meeting dates.
I always put that on there, but it's supposed to be.
Well, we should say what they are, so we know when we're gonna move
Okay,
them.
okay.
Well, when's the next
So-
Patriots game? No, we haven't
Yeah,
answered
I
that.
know.
Well, it's not the Patriots you have to worry about.
Buffalo. Buffalo's not coming to here anymore, they're done. So that's good.
So,
Are you making a trade?
no, my whole family's from upstate New York, so it's in my blood. So we got
And then
January
January
5th,
5th. And then we have February
2nd.
2nd and March 2nd.
Good. All right, so we'll see you guys sometime in April.
And that's it.
I will make a motion to adjourn at 5:39.
I'll second
There's a
that.
motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any messages?
You have new messages from Ken Pacheco. Tyler